Just the way they all became the Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. The Brady Bunch. That's the way they became the Brady Bunch.
There's some pretty profound meaning in Christianity, archetypal, spiritual, esoteric, but it was used, as a way to maintain authority, political authority, and all of that. So it seems like this has always been this balance, because there's so many layers and dimensions to how to get the esoteric and the deeply transformational mainstream without losing it, or there doesn't seem to have been a good medium for that, that wouldn't have just generated another subculture, if you know what I mean. But maybe that'll change with the internet. Maybe that'll change with new communication technology, where it will depend less on these giant bureaucratic industrial companies and governments to kind of hand us down the truth, because that's the way we have to function now. We have to kind of make something go viral. We have to have a lot of money for something to be a major part of society. So maybe when the society's way of organizing itself transforms, it'll kind of organically let this stuff come out. I don't know. This an idea.
Yeah, I had a question off that for Benton and Kurt, in terms of, do we actually need to infiltrate mainstream, or should we just create our own mainstream out of, our own realm, and just that's how we do it? Is that?
That's the power of it, is that if this right now, what is going on right now, becomes mainstream, which is what the intent behind it is, sense. The intent behind it is to generate love, to mingle with each other, and to see what happens, to have our mental vibrations and our heart vibrations off of one another.
Sustainable values, right? I mean, watching a saying gets you in a certain state of mind to go do X, Y, and Z to the environment, to your friends, to your family. So,
what if the whole point is for the mainstream to dissolve into many streams, and that the diversification and the producing of media means there really never will be a mainstream anymore. There'll be independently produced media that's allowed people to seek out certain forms of media that they want as individuals, rather than having it be instead the person find themselves.
And that's
so the idea of the mainstream maybe just won't exist.
I think it'll be less consolidated than it is today, because we have the hierarchy today, but with this kind of new and network information society, I think definitely there could be multiple coexisting hubs and organically self-sustaining communities that are vital in themselves, and they flourish because of networks like this that pop up and people who start to talk, and everybody can kind of just naturally gravitate towards it and contribute to it. I think that will become much more influential and much more powerful and efficient way for society to run. Something much more like the Tao or the Way, like we were saying before.
Mm-hmm.
The problem too is not to have it too fragmented, because if everyone's swimming in their own stream and no one's actually connecting at all, meaning if everyone can kind of just go fed on whatever they want to be fed on and just seek towards that, then you have a bunch of disparate groups that are just more fragmented. And I think that's also a potential of what a decentralized can do. So how to maybe address that?
When you first said, is this stuff going to become mainstream or take over mainstream, I was picturing it siphoning bits off into this, but then I realized, we don't want another mainstream. You don't want to just make a different mainstream. So it needs to be looser, so there are individual pockets. And I think if this manifests in a healthy way, mainstream right now is a bit like a snake. It's got a head and a leader, and everything has to follow behind it. And if we break it up, it might adopt some sort of like flocking behavior. where it's independent but networked, and each one's movements determines the direction the entire flock goes. So it would be independent, and it would be obeying laws of spontaneous order. Like if you
like
give a system
rhizomes and
said, like flocking, pooling only, they like the fish only pay attention to 3 rules, the birds, and you get these complex like swimming behaviors, and that's an emergent behavior out of the flocking thing. So just as people, we might come together, we might be mainstream media, and then it would also adopt that flocking emergent behavior of the parts.
yeah, like grassroots, you know, that how the roots of a forest are all intertwined. So in the sense that even though they're all decentralized, they're convergently interconnected.
Right.
The thing about the mainstream media is I think people with the technology, we were talking about technology earlier, they were the people with the new magic, basically, and they set the roles. Through the dice, if you want to believe in that, a few people and their friends and family, if they wanted to benefit from it, did get to set, you know, the head snake, if you want to call it that. This that we're on, this interactive place, I think a lot of people in the mainstream, the televised media right now, don't want it to succeed. They want to help government, you know, put restrictions on this thing so it doesn't have that mysterious organizing principle to be something as big as a vortex in terms of power, actual sway in the world's decisions. Because although it's new, this internet thing is networking faster than any of the other mediums. So what that mean? I think if mainstream is going to survive in a sustainable community, it's going to seek balance, which means it's going to redistribute the basically, and that means it goes out to individuals, groups, activating, swimming in this ocean, or consolidating in the digital Amazon, as I like to call it. So yeah, this is the next level of tribal dynamics here. This is a new thing forming, and I think just like with every new medium that comes in to the age, the PM approaching, and they start crafting a surfboard, the wave, I think that's the history of learning how to surf the income tide change and accepting the flow that's about to hit. So what does that mean for people like you guys?
It means not
in this,
compromising.
it's an interesting time. Never has this happened before.
We're invoking the new magic
Yeah,
by
I
doing
mean,
this.
Yeah, and I think it means not compromising, because there have been attempts, I feel like, for this kind of thing. I mean, there have been small movements that have stirred stuff up and basically shut down. And I'm not talking just about the hippie thing, but I'm talking more about like, I'm trying to think of a specific example. The Situationists, for instance. Usually 2 things that happen is that, one, their egos get too big. So a group gets together, they all inflate themselves, and then they screw themselves by just ego tripping on each other, you know, with the surrealists, with however many art movements you have. The second thing is that government or power actually steps in and starts either corrupting them specifically as individuals and fragmenting the group that way, or doing whatever they can to shut it down. So how do you avoid those two? I
think maybe what's different now than those times before is the people were, maybe it's a bit asinine to think we're trying. Like before, it was a movement to overtake it. But what if the interconnectivity, the technology, the media, all of a sudden there's 5 guys here that for our Sunday night entertainment, we are creating our own media network instead of paying attention to mainstream. And so what if everybody starts doing that? You know, maybe we're being really egotistical and we're forming our own group and becoming a little unit, but then shit, maybe everyone else is going to start doing that, and there won't be a mainstream media because everyone will be much more interested in creating media and network in their own little communities, forming the little pockets that